Hello and welcome to the Amped EV podcast. I am David Sickles. I am the editor for The Buzz.
And I'm Jason Morgan, content director for Fleet Equip. Are you okay?
I'm anxious.
Yeah, you look a little tightly wound. What's got you so anxious?
Range.
Oh, I see. You got the range anxiety.
I got the range anxiety blues.
Well, we need to push these away and bring out the couch for you to lay down on, and let's work on this.
I got something set up under the desk.
Okay, all right, like a foot bath massage kind of thing. What's happening there?
No, I crawl under George Costanza.
I see.
Yeah,
and just fetal position.
I don't know if you've noticed. Every day at 3 o'clock, I just disappear for an hour.
We've been talking about it.
Yeah.
HR hasn't talked with you yet. I thought we took care of this.
I thought I was getting away with it.
Okay, so range anxiety, what makes you anxious about the range?
So, range anxiety, obviously, it's an issue in both, the trucking world, as you know very well, but also in the passenger car world. I know someone, when I talk EVs with people, that's one of the first thing that comes up.
Yeah.
If I can't get from my home in Akron, Ohio to Myrtle Beach to bring the kids down there for a vacation, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Not enough range,
Yeah.
And it just makes me anxious.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see if we can calm your range anxieties, because I'm about to blow your mind with a bold statement. This is a Jason Morgan bold statement. Are you ready? You do not need the range you think you need. How about that? Yeah. Did your monocle crack? That's right.
Please do go on.
That's right. Okay, well, look, the fact of the matter is, if you're getting in the EV, I think, you kind of have an idea of what you're doing with it, right? I mean, from a consumer, passenger point of view, yeah, you're not going down to Myrtle Beach, right? I know I mentioned in one other episode that I'm interested in EV as a private consumer citizen, that this sounds great. I still got a gas SUV that I'm going to cart the kids around until the wheels fall off of that thing, right? That's still happening. Mm-hmm. In the commercial world, it's pretty much the same. We always start with application. And instead of sit here and explain to you, we got a clip. I love clips. I love doing these clips. Here we got Patrick Wallace, the marketing segment manager for Peterbilt. I caught up with him at ATA's MC&E to talk about the Peterbilt 579 EV. And we kind of got into a range of discussion here. So I'm going to steal a bit from an earlier interview I did with him. Here's a clip, Patrick Wallace, Peterbilt, talking about range anxiety.
Range anxiety seems to be a conversation on the front end with fleets that are interested. How do you walk them through that conversation? What have you heard from customers as they're operating the 579 EV in terms of range anxiety and getting over that?
So far, we've had great feedback. We've been working with Run on Less, and one of our customers, Biaggi Brothers, has been running one of our trucks, and it hasn't been a huge issue. Kind of what we do to address customers when they're worried about range is we make sure to look at their entire application. We can run simulations to see, are they running loaded there, running loaded back, are they running loaded one way? So we can look at all those factors. We can do simulations, and they usually end up being pretty well done and pretty accurate. And we also, make sure that there's a little bit of allowance there. So once we talk through that, we run the simulations, we show them the numbers. I think that really brings home, the reality of it.
Right.
And then once they try the truck out, we've seen success where we've predicted that.
Okay, so you see there, I mean, it's all about planning. They're never going to put someone into an EV that they know that the range isn't going to cut it anyway. I mean, we got, depending on your commercial vehicle, you got like 130, 150, maybe 200 miles of range in a charge.
Yes.
So if you're running 300 miles before, or a round trip, they're not going to put you in it. It's not going to happen. We're not there yet.
Sure. What if you're in the passenger world and, you don't know where you're going day to day? Sure, you're going to work. You go to work, back and forth. But what if I want to take a day trip somewhere,
Yeah.
That's where range, as far as the consumer side of things, starts to come into play a little bit.
Okay.
Now, there are companies out there who are doing a lot in this area. Lucid is one of them.
Lucid.
Okay. That's right. Let me tell you about the Lucid Group. So they just came out with an EPA-rated 520 miles of range on this. What is it? A sedan? I believe it's a sedan.
Okay, sedan.
Yeah.
Sounds
so
right.
yeah. So I mean that is a lot more than what you typically see. You know,
Yes.
we're somewhere in the 200 to 400, I would say, is somewhere where
Yeah.
we're looking at in the passenger vehicle side. I
Right.
mean, a little more if you're lucky, but 520 miles, that is the
Yeah.
highest range for a passenger vehicle that the EPA has ever given.
Right. Yeah. My gas SUV doesn't even do that. I think we top out at like 423, if I
Yeah.
can believe the computer, right, when we're fully filled. So an extra 100. I mean, is this a prototype? Do we have any details for how they're doing this? Is it magic?
No, so I believe it is magic.
Yeah, some sort of thermaturgy there.
It's
they're
all
doing?
magic. So they've got different editions of this vehicle. You know, if you're looking for more performance, they've got one that can deliver more horsepower.
Sure.
You know, a lot of this is just kind of in the battery itself. Also, the software. You'd be surprised at what software can actually do for an electric vehicle's range, not just the actual, you know, components,
Right.
but you know what's actually running in the background. And software, I think, is where things are going to get really interesting when it comes to range anxiety and increasing that. Let's say I bought my my EV and I get an estimated 300 miles per charge on this thing, and it turns out I could use a little more. OTA updates.
Okay.
Over-the-air updates
Yep.
is what a lot of these guys are starting to do. We've got Audi. They just recently came out with a software update for you know, some of their electric vehicles, where you know the e-tron, it's an
Okay.
SUV. They have used the software update to extend that car's range by an average of 12.4 miles.
Right.
So, you know, the way they're doing that, basically they're sending over the air an update to the software. So the software now is going to be controlling essentially like the electric motors in a different way.
Right.
Also, it can improve the cooling of, you know, the entire system. So they're finding little ways that they can kind of eke out a little more.
Right.
That's super interesting. There's also Volvo. They just had a range assistant app that they have with their OTA update that they're delivering to their customers. And what this isn't so much what Audi did, where it's actually improving those little performances, although it can in a way. But basically, they're delivering this app to people so that as they're driving, they can you know, see on this app, oh, maybe you want to adjust the way you're driving a little bit to, you know, eke out a little more range that way. But interestingly enough, one of the notes that they sent was that the app can also, if you prefer, adjust the climate system automatically in your vehicle. So if you're using too much energy to, you know, cool or heat your vehicle or whatever, you can have that automatically adjusted to get more range out of your vehicle if you really need it. So it's things like this that, you know, you don't have to go buy a whole new electric car if you're looking for more range necessarily. You might be able to just get it straight from the OE with a software update.
Right. And for those thinking, that is crazy. How can they just do this over there like my phone updates? We see this in the diesel world too. I don't know if it's the same thing on the electric side, but in the diesel world, all these over-the-air engine updates that'll come in, they'll start with a pretty wide safety margin in terms of operation and things they can tweak, right? And then once OEMs get more and more info about how those engines are operating, they can send those updates and just pare it down. So you're getting a little more efficiency out of the same engine platform. You're just, to your point, doing it with software, right? But you also raised something really interesting here about what impacts my range. I mean, you give the estimated range, it's all estimate, but the conversation is not so different from fuel economy, right?
Right.
Vehicle fuel economy can differ vehicle to vehicle, application to application, the way you drive it. I loved that the tweaking of the driving behavior. So I've got a pop quiz. I haven't told you about this yet, so I'm going to ask you to see if you get a range. Yeah, this is fun. Putting them on the spot. This will be great. Okay, so the driver. Okay, now we're talking Class 8 electric truck.
Class 8 electric truck.
Okay, the driver. First off, kind of fun news, the driver can, by just their operation, impact the range. Okay, so let's start there. The driver does impact the range. You drive a truck, I drive a truck, it could have a different range depending on our behavior.
Interesting.
What do you think the impact range is? Let's say a percentage. Am I impacting the range by? What do you think you do as a driver?
So, you know, let's say I'm driving much more aggressively than you are. Man, I don't know. I'm going to guess 12%.
Okay, you are right in the range. Let's get a bell. The ding ding there. Nicely done. I don't have a prize for you, but it is. So I was talking with Brett Pope, Director of Electric Vehicles at Volvo Trucks North America, back when I saw him at ATA's MCNE. And during the Q&A, he did mention, one of the things they've learned after having all these electric trucks driving around is that the drivers impact the range, and they have a significant impact. He stated that driver habits impact the range by 10 to 15%.
Wow.
Yeah, so you nailed it there,
Wow,
right in the middle. Bullseye.
That was a guess.
Bullseye.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
All right, well,
That's
you want to keep
amazing.
this going and let
do.
your money ride? I got
do.
another one
I
for
do.
you.
Double
All
or
right,
nothing,
here we go.
baby.
All right, now regenerative braking. Do you? First off, can you explain? Can you kind of give us an overview? You know what that is? When I say regenerative braking, you know what that is?
I do know.
That's not the question, but can you help us out here?
Yes,
What is regenerative braking?
yes. So regenerative braking essentially means that whenever the vehicle is kind of slowing down by reversing the kinetic energy going into the motor to kind of generate a little more of those electrons, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know, energy, right? Yeah, it's like an engine brake
that's
that
about
gives you.
where my science mind.
Yeah,
stands.
I know. That was very good. Yeah, it's like energy. It's like an engine brake, but it's in the wheel ends or the axle that puts energy back into the batteries, right? So when you're slowing down, you hear a lot about one pedal driving, right, on
Yes.
electric vehicles, where you have the gas, you take your foot off. Like you said, the kinetic energy builds up, send it back to the battery. Do you know how much regen braking can give you back in range in some applications, in these commercial applications? Do you have maybe an up to percentage of what you think just regen alone? So if you have a standard,
12%.
Okay, that's a pretty good guess. I like that you kept it on your rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
You just kept throwing rock. I appreciate that. So I talked to ZF's team back in the spring, actually, and they had a team of engineers that I was talking with. And their consensus was that regenerative braking, and I'll quote here, to state it simply, with recuperation, an extended range of about 20% can be realized.
Wow.
Right? So those are just a couple different things of how that impacts, right? And that's not even, we're not talking about the area, right? Do you have a lot of hills, a lot of mountains? Are you in Colorado, or are you out kind of, between like Columbus and Cincinnati here, where it's just straight and nothing? Oh my gosh, that's a hard one. And the winters, summers, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of different things impact the range, as you've alluded to here. And you did a great job, by the way. Thanks for coming to my impromptu game show.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yes. So you're saying between the regen braking and the driver, you're looking at as much as 32% range coming back to you?
Well, depending on how that is and how you've mapped out your application. Now, in a commercial world, right? I've got another quote here from Brett Pope that it kind of demonstrates this, right? Because it's not a definite thing.
Sure,
It's so variable, right?
Yeah.
And he says, what's kind of interesting to watch is the first couple of weeks of driving an electric truck. The range results are a little scattered because it takes the driver a little bit of time to get used to how the electric truck brakes, how it performs, and how it accelerates. And he says you see that stabilize over some time, and once they get used to it. All the way up to how it can maintain road speed up a grade, right? Where with a diesel, you kind of got to give it a little juice and make sure you get it up there, or even kind of get going a little before you hit the hill. The amount of torque coming out of the electric axles it's just constant, just pulls you right up. You don't even notice the load. So those little things, right? You get used to that. And he's saying the bell curve kind of comes down, then kind of levels out over some time, and you get a better idea of who's, let's keep the same terminology, who's still an efficient driver, right? Because whether you're talking about how much fuel I'm burning or you're talking about how much electricity you're using for the battery system, it's still all just about efficiency.
Yeah. And, for those who haven't been behind the wheel of an electric car, it does feel a little different when you're, going down a hill. Without touching the brakes, it kind of, it feels like it's braking a little bit, and it's that regen braking happening.
Right. And I'll dig up some clips. We'll have some clips here, and you can see it here, but...
Oh, wow. It's a little disconcerting. With the AMTs, you didn't feel... you still felt the weight, right? But you didn't... still kind of felt like a pickup truck a little bit. This, you don't even really feel the weight being pulled, to get going. You just kind of go, huh?
Yep.
That's wild.
See it here, but behind the wheel of an electric truck. I've been there. I've done the videos, fully loaded. It was a closed course. It was a closed course, right? But the gulf between 40 miles per hour and 60 miles per hour was like that much, because all of a sudden I looked down and it's like 60 to 65, and I was like, holy smokes, this is a fully loaded truck. Let's slow down a little bit. Here, you just don't notice. I mean, you get into like a high performance car, you know what I mean? You hit 70 really pretty quick, and you don't feel it, right? Whereas with some diesel, you feel the load, you feel it pulling. The amount of torque coming out of the electric vehicles, I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. It's so smooth, so nice. Just different. Different.
And of course, we're talking a lot about regen braking. We're talking a lot about the driver's behavior. Obviously, those things are going to affect your range. But then there are tons of other things that are kind of just outside of your control that are going to affect your range. Your climate is going to affect your range if it's too hot or too cold.
Right.
Your range will vary.
Right.
Just all kinds of things that when you see that kind of estimated range, it's probably not always going to be that range.
Right.
If you're running the air conditioning,
Right.
that's going to affect your range. I mean, even turning the radio on could potentially affect your range. So, there are all these different things that range anxiety, it is a real thing. It is out there, but, it's just going to vary depending on where you are and what you're doing.
Yep. You gotta know what you're doing with it. And going back to it, I do think, at least on the commercial side, again, this is just me, pure speculation, but I think people are being conservative with range too. But to your point, know what you're doing with it and know where you're going. And even on the passenger side, right? That might mean I have to map out my routes and my driving a little bit more, right? Get in the car, put in the information, make sure I can get there, and do a little prep ahead of time.
But a lot of OEs are helping out on that. I mean, Tesla is renowned for having their in-car apps that can help you do that.
Right. Well, and like we mentioned before too, the trade-off is I don't have to go to a gas station. So like as long as I can map it out, right, and know that I'm going to have a charge along the way or a charge available somewhere or make it back home, it's not so different from commercial. On the commercial side, I know I've plugged Run on Less before too, but it's really interesting where you can see the majority. Okay, off the top of my head, I haven't looked at it in a little while, but when I was perusing it, and I invite everybody else to go take a look for themselves too, but the battery, people didn't drain the batteries down that far in the Run. I mean, you had a couple that were going down to 30 and 20%, but a lot of them were still keeping it up in the upper range just because of the natural duty cycle of a truck, right? It's not like they were sandbagging. It's just this is what the truck usually does. Fits perfectly fine for the application, and hey, zero emissions. So
in a couple of sentences, Run on Less, what is that?
Oh, right, sorry. So, our dedicated viewers surely have heard me talk about this, but Run on Less electric. So NACFE, an organization that tests fuel efficiency in different truck technologies, put on a run of more than a dozen electric trucks and all sorts of different applications across the whole country to see what they perform. There's a whole data dashboard where they captured this run for about a week to 2 weeks.
We can link to that too.
Yeah, it's awesome to go and click through there and see how that is, that played out, of how like DHL that's picking up and dropping off every day, dozens of time a days, varies with their strategy versus like a Class A that made like 4 stops along the way and just delivered, on a further range, kind of went more miles but less stops. So really cool to see how that maps out. And again, you got to, it's, I know it's the technology is different, but in the commercial trucking world, the approach should not be. You still have to know your application on how you're doing this, and then that'll decide what equipment you're buying, be it electric or diesel or whatever at this point.
Sure. Yeah, in the consumer world, not quite as tight. You don't have to know exactly your quote-unquote application all the time, but it's still going to affect what vehicle you end up going with.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people that would have 2 different cars. Like I said before, you have 2 different cars. I just need something to go back and forth for work. You get the kids involved, and now it's like, now I need a whole platoon of SUVs for the children and their things. But that's a different problem for a different day, I think.
I did want to mention one more thing. This is just fun.
Okay.
It's
like
not
fun.
Really anything I think that you or I will be investing in, but Maybe you.
Yeah, we will not touch it, but you definitely should.
So there's this company called Lightyear.
Okay.
They have raised, as of September, so it might have changed since then, but as of September, they have raised $110 million for this long-range solar car that they're working on.
I've seen this, right.
It's freaking cool.
Yeah, I love that.
It's so cool. It's got the roof that kind of comes out, and it's got the solar panels on it. It looks so cool. I would love one, but I don't know if it'll be in the budget for me next year. But, well, it's not going to production until 2024, so maybe
You never
we'll be
know.
at that point.
I mean, there's a lot going on with solar. We should do a solar one because there's a lot going on
That would be
there.
fun. That would be fun. But, so far their prototype, the Lightyear 1, it has driven 440 miles on a single battery charge. And, they're trying to develop locations where they're going to produce their solar roofs.
Yeah.
So, if this kind of technology takes off and you're in a part of the country where, you're not going too far outside of it and you can take advantage of solar power, that could be something for you.
To infinity and beyond.
I was waiting. I was waiting for
Got it. Got it.
Well, Jason, that's all I've got for today. How about yourself?
This was wonderful. How do you feel? Let's
My
go take it back.
anxiety is serenity now.
Nice. Mission accomplished.
Yes.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm amped to be a part of this.
You got to stop.
I don't know what we're up to on the counter, but I love it. There's an
We'll
amp.
see.
Amp.
We'll see.
All right.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Take care.